Welcome to our interview series with WellNest Global and international holistic experts, Consilience, exploring new ways of thriving. You can find this series on YouTube at WellNest Global, and I'm Valarie Angle Roberts, your hostess tonight. So our intention with this program is to empower you, our audience, with tools, wisdom, and resources to assist you in your journey of thriving in this life. Whether that's for peace of mind, success, satisfaction, we want to be your source of connection and introduce you to experts from around the world. So our guest today is Andrew Stoute, host of Let's Be Diverse, a conversational podcast around leadership, HR, and the workplace. Michael is experienced in human resources and diversity and inclusion, and we're super stoked to have you here with us today, Michael or Andrew.
That's okay. I've been called worse, so that's okay.
I'm channeling you to be Michael today for some reason.
I've been called worse.
Welcome, Andrew. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am a gentleman I'm living out west in Canada. So I'm in Canada. So all those listeners who are familiar with Canada, I'm in the Saskatchewan area. I am originally from Montreal, Quebec. So born and raised, I am a Quebecer. I have a certificate in HR and diversity and inclusion. I am married with a fur baby, and I mentioned I'm from Montreal, so I speak two languages, English and French.
Very impressive. So yeah, I can't even, usually I visualize where people are from. I can't even picture what's it like in Saskatchewan.
So Saskatchewan is they call it the prairies. So there's a lot of farmlands, a lot of farming. So you'll see, the mustard growing. So it is nice. There's lots of nice areas to camp, and there's lots of beaches and stuff. So it's very, they say it's flat. So there's not a lot of hills or mountains here, but it is a beautiful place to live. There's some beautiful areas in Saskatchewan. I've had a lot of opportunity to visit a lot of it since I've moved here. So it is different. So it is nice. It's different from going from living in a big city to a smaller city. Living in Montreal, where we are driving to get downtown, it's a half hour, where here it's 10-15 minutes. So it's a big difference, less traffic. So yeah, it's different.
Okay, yeah, interesting, really cool. All right, so you are hosting your podcast around HR, diversity, inclusion, and that's what you've had your work experience in. So it seems like you're pretty passionate about this. What fires you up so much about this topic? Why are you so passionate about it?
I think it fires me up because I've always been a people person. I've always been people orientated. I love to listen to people, whatever subjects that they want to talk about. I feel like I've been a good listener. I'm trying to improve on that because I always think that you're never perfect. So you work on your listening skills, and I feel that improving your listening skills makes you a better leader. And I do feel that leadership can come from different walks of life. So you don't have to have that quote title of leadership. You can be a leader in any walk of life. We were leaders I remember I was a leader in kindergarten when I was telling my friends, this is the game that we wanted to play. I wanted to play. You learn from sports. So you learn as you grow up, and then you start working, and you just learn about it. You continue to learn about it in the workforce.
Yeah, great point. So it's interesting that, the way the world works, like today, that was on my mind a lot, was leadership, bosses, role models, and things like that. And you're right. So in the workplace, you generally have like a chain of command, a hierarchy, the orders kind of come down the pike, and the accountability. But anyone can really be a leader in the workplace by modeling outstanding behaviors, right?
Yeah. And I do believe that leadership comes in different levels. So you can be a leader, but some people there's some people that want to take that leadership role. If you're sitting in a group of people and there's a project to come up and someone says, okay, who wants to take the lead on that? There are people that are going to put their hands up and say, oh, I want to do that, because they feel like they have that skill. There's some people that they're a quiet leader. They'll do their stuff, but they're not that type of person that's going to step up and say, okay, I'll do it. So there's I'd think different levels of leadership, but yes, I do feel like you can be a leader no matter what.
Yeah, I agree. I really think so too. And okay, so on your podcast, Let's Be Diverse,
Yep.
you really focus in on that. You talk about all kinds of things related to the workplace. So it's really a great place to go. I mean, basically, if you just work with people at all in any format, it's a great place to go kind of hear about these different aspects of HR, diversity, inclusion. Talk a little bit about your podcast and some of the topics that have really piqued your interest.
So some of the topics that have piqued my interest. So when I first started it, I didn't want to. I'm going to use the word pigeonhole. I didn't want to pigeonhole myself to say, okay, I'm going to do an HR podcast, and I didn't want to just have leaders that were interested. There are people who, unfortunately, HR has a little bit of a bad rap with people. Not a lot of people like HR. They don't believe in HR. They don't feel that HR is for them. They feel that HR is for management, but that is not the case. Nobody in HR wants to see somebody struggling during their workday, or not being able to do a task, or feeling alone, or feeling bullied. So I wanted to come up with different topics. So I am doing like your employee engagement, learning and development, but I'm also doing stuff like values, trust and respect, imposter syndrome. I'm doing all kinds of stuff like that, different stuff, chaos in the workplace, because I feel that these things are important. They're just not talked about in that realm. For instance, trust and respect. I truly believe that if you're a leader, if you don't have trust or respect from your employees, then you're gonna struggle. And when you have trust and respect, they're gonna go through a wall for you.
Yeah, you're right. I think, it resonated with me when you said that a lot of times the ordinary person in a workplace doesn't feel like HR is for them. It's like the principal's office in some people's minds, right?
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
just where you go when you get in trouble,
yeah,
or you have to do some kind of paperwork or something like that. But
yeah.
I do see that. I sense that, I've got some friends who are in HR, and I sense that HR has really been working to evolve to be a
Mhm.
more holistic sort of
Yeah,
uh, resource
yeah,
for the entire workplace. And I've
right.
noticed a lot more focus on soft skills.
Yeah,
You mentioned listening skills,
yeah.
and then you were just now talking about values and things like that. So, have you been in your experience? Have you been part of that evolution? Have you seen it change from kind of one way of thinking to another?
Yeah, I've actually seen it change. I've talked to a lot of leaders, and things have changed. And I'm going to say the pandemic had a big part in it. Um, I'll give you an example. For example, when, years ago, when you would go to, for candidates, they'd go to a job interview, and they would sit down and they'd go through the interview. And at the end, the HR person or the person running the interview would say, do you have any questions? And the typical questions people would ask back in the day would be, what's the salary? What are the hours? Is it Monday to Friday? What's the vacation? How many days vacation do I get? Those would be the typical questions that people would have asked back in the day. However, now things have kind of flipped. The script has been flipped a little bit, and now HR people are having to think a little bit more and be more prepared, because now candidates are coming in and they're saying at the end, when they're asked if there's any questions, they're saying, okay, yeah, what is your mission, vision, and values here? Do you have an employee well-being program here? Do you have an anti-bullying program here? Do you have a wellness program? How are you guys on uh, talking with coworkers? Is there break times? What's your culture like? These are things that are being asked. And what the candidates are, what I'm hearing is what the candidates are doing is they're asking these questions, and now it's on them. They are deciding once they leave the building whether they want to, whether they're going to accept an offer if they receive one from the company, whether they're going to accept it or not, just by those answers. So I feel like companies are having to be more prepared as far as their answer and building up the company and making it to be a company that people will want to, that they're drawn to, that they want to work at.
Yeah, I recently started a project in which I work with a lot of college age students,
Yeah.
and I'm noticing in them this generation, they are way more in tune with their emotional intelligence, and they're way more likely to communicate and articulate that than, well, I'm 48, so I'm technically a Gen X, but I lean toward a lot of millennial mindset stuff. But it's different than what I experienced. Like you said, the former is definitely what I was used to. If you go in and if you get that far with HR, you probably have the job if you're hearing
Right.
about your salary and your benefits
Right.
and all that stuff.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
you're not leaving and deciding, you're like, oh yes, I got this one.
No.
But now there's more pressure
Mhm.
to have a more well-rounded workplace,
Yeah.
and this generation has expectations of
Mhm.
well-being,
Mhm.
that their mental health is going to be respected, that
Right.
their diversity is going to be respected, that their belief systems are going to be respected, and they're quite articulate around
Mhm.
that as well. Do you think so?
I do. And I think that people, again, because of the pandemic, I think people realize. So, you're working at a company, I think before the pandemic, not that you loved it, but, you had a meeting, you ran a little bit late. You maybe had somebody come, going to pick up the parents are like, okay, who's going to pick up the kids today from school? So you're kind of trying to rearrange that. And then during the pandemic, some people were working from home. So they were able to drop their kids off at school and pick them up after school. And then they were there for stops for the at the end of the school day, and they were able to talk to their kids, how was your day, while they were preparing supper. So it wasn't as rushed. And then all of a sudden the companies wanted to have them come back, and they're like, no, I don't want to go back. Like, I don't want to, I don't want to start at 8 o'clock. Like, I was driving my kid to school and I really enjoyed that, and I want to do that now. Or companies are saying, let's have we're having a meeting tomorrow. We're going to have it at 8 o'clock. And they're saying, well, no, why can't we have it at 2 or 10? That way I can take my kid to school and I can be here and on time for the meeting. But why does it got to be at 8 o'clock? Now I have to find somebody else to do it. And I don't want to find somebody else to do it. I want to take my kid to school. So I think they figured out what they want, what people want. And I think people understand what's important to them. It's almost like some people, they realize stuff when stuff happens, right? Like, somebody passes away, well, then you look at stuff differently. So this is kind of like about the same thing, I would say. It made people think a little bit more and understand exactly what they want and what's important to them.
Right. Yeah, it was just like a huge mindfulness moment, right? Where everyone had an opportunity to slow down and
Mhm.
evaluate
Right.
what was making them happy, what they were enjoying in their life and what they weren't, and what was
Mhm.
important, because there was a lot of loss for so
Mhm.
many people and grief.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it that does make you kind of reevaluate your life. So even for people who didn't necessarily lose someone close to them, it still caused reflection. So great
Mhm.
point. Yeah, the
Mhm.
pandemic, I'm sure, really kind of heavily impacted HR and the workplace in that way. So I'm personally glad to see things evolving in a more personalized way, in a less structured, cold, static way, where it was just, this is the way it is. Because
Right.
going into diversity and inclusion, oftentimes for women or mothers or parents, that former workplace was tough. And often women have to, or primary caretakers, sometimes men as well, have to choose work or home. You
Right.
couldn't have it both ways. But I do see more people balancing that in their workplace, and maybe they work an hour after they put their kids to bed or more,
Right.
and,
Right.
and they make it work. It's more about here's what your role is, and this is what your goals are and your KPIs, and
Yep.
if you do this, I don't care when you do it, as long as you're at the meeting and you do the briefing and all and so on.
Yep.
So talk a little bit about the diversity and inclusion piece that you're passionate about, and how that kind of plays into the workplace and your role.
Well, I definitely think as far as that goes, I mean, as you're talking, I mean, I think communication is the key to everything. It's what drives the bus. It's what keeps the companies going. And I think just being, making sure that, your employees that are working from home feel like they're part of the team. I have one um, friend of mine who is in works for who is in charge of HR, and what she devised is a coffee chat. So she encourages employees that are working in the office or working from home to connect with somebody for a coffee chat every Wednesday morning from 10 to 10:15. So someone will send somebody a message and say, hey, we want to do a coffee chat tomorrow. And they do it on Teams. And the conversation is not work related. It's very much outside of work, what's new, what's happening. So, they have kids in sports, or they have kids in activities, or what's going on around the house. Are they doing renovations? Are they fixing stuff in the garden, or what did they grow this summer, or how does their exercise program going? So, but it's allowing these people to not feel no, it's allowing people to not feel like they're left on an island by themselves, that they feel part of the team. So I would say that's probably the key element there. When I say communication, I'm a firm, like I said, firm believer communicating. I feel like you can never over communicate something. If you feel like you didn't say it, make sure you say it. And even if you said it, just make sure that it's out there, that people understand what's going on. And you mentioned earlier about candidates going for interviews. I believe that communication starts right from the onboarding process, for a leader to communicate their expectations, whether they're working in the office or whether they're working from home, what is expected from them, what they're, as far as hours, as far as day, as far as what needs to be done. And then just a little check-in to see how they're doing. How's it going? How you doing? Not like a tongue lashing and say, how come your work is not done, but how are you doing? How's everything going? How's that project coming? Is there anything that we could do to help you out if you're behind? Let me know, keep me informed, and I will be, I'll make sure that we can get you some assistance there.
Yeah, really cool. I know a lot of friends who are doing that. It's almost like reverse networking, right? So you're entrepreneurs, they're going out, they're networking, they're making, connections and leads, but it's almost like reverse networking in the workplace, amongst the workplace, keeping people connected. So that's fun, and it does breed a sense of community. So I love that concept. And I know it can be tough for leaders to keep that cohesiveness in the team. But fortunately, things like Zoom and Teams and Slack and all these other technologies have made their way into our lives and
Yep,
are part of everyday
sure.
conversation now,
Yeah, for
so we
sure.
can stay more connected, right?
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
um, so what's some like wisdom for the workplace, whether you want to address it towards leaders or just regular workplace employees, members of the workplace community? What's some of your best tips or wisdom from your point of view in HR?
So what I'm seeing right now is that there's a lot of people who went through, you're finding out that so my last 4 episodes before my recent one this past last week, 4 people in a row, I give them the opportunity, just like you did today, to tell their story and tell them, say a little bit about themselves. And 4 people in a row had said that they were in high paying, high caliber jobs. They, everything, they had everything, the house, the car, everything was good. And then they just felt like they were just unhappy for whatever reason. Could be that they just weren't getting along with their boss, or they just didn't like what they were doing, or they didn't like the hours. So they just decided that they couldn't do it anymore. So what I'm finding today from that is that these people figured out that they weren't happy, and they decided that they could, that they wanted to change what they were doing, and they went out and they did it. And there's a lot of people out there that I'm speaking to, excuse me, that feel like they are stuck. And so my message to people today, I would say, is you were not stuck. You can get yourself out of the hole. You can dig yourself out. The first thing I would say to people, if you are working somewhere and you're not happy, the first thing that I would say you need to learn or understand is I am not stuck. I am in control of my own narrative. And once they figure that out, once they decide that, then you can go on to the further steps of figuring out, okay, now that I know I'm not happy, now I know I want to make a change here in my career. Now I can start to figure out what it is I want to do and the steps to go there. But until they figure out, until they realize that they're not stuck, if they feel like they're stuck and they can't get out of that, they're going to be thinking that, and they're just going to stay stuck. But once they realize, like I said, that they can move forward, or they are in control of their own narrative, like I said before, then they can move forward.
I am so grateful to you for saying that. That is a huge belief of mine. And it's always heartbreaking when you talk with somebody who feels like they're just stuck and there's no way out. And I mean, that's kind of where, that's what leads to depression, anxiety, serious addictions and mental health disorders, is feeling that you don't have any control over what happens, your life, your circumstances. But like you said, like when you say, no, I'm not stuck, I write the narrative, then go to HR, go to your boss, talk about possibilities at the workplace. Because a lot of people, I feel, think they're stuck because they like their paycheck, or they like the things that they've acquired or whatever responsibilities in their role, but they don't necessarily like what they're doing at the time anymore.
Right.
And so maybe there's possibilities at the workplace, but even if not, there's a million opportunities out there. There's a million possibilities. And so owning your empowerment, owning the power to choose, that keeps you from going down that dark road.
Right. And there's all kinds of people that you can, there's all kinds of scenarios you can do, and there's all kinds of help that you can get for that. There's lots of career coaches out there that will help people to I know it's extra, extra finance, extra money to be paid out, but I feel like if a lot of people could use that, and it will help them to move forward and to realize that they can, a lot of people feel like they're stuck, but they also feel like they're so stuck that they feel like they can't do anything else, or that they feel like they're what they're schooling. Oh, I didn't go to college after school, so I don't have this, or I don't have that. And they're looking at jobs and they're like, oh, they're looking for a bachelor's and this, that. So companies, when they put a job posting out, yes, they might be looking for a bachelor's degree, but that's almost, a lot of cases, I talk to a lot of recruiters, and that is almost it's like a wish list for them. So we put that on there and they say, okay, we'd like to have somebody with a bachelor's, but if they don't have it, I talked to an HR manager and she told me, she said, if I had two people who had a bachelor, if I had one person had a bachelor's, if it's an administrative job or something, if I have two people, one's got a bachelor's, but has the worst personality ever, and the other person has no bachelor's, but is authentic and empowering and compassionate and hardworking. She said, you can't teach that, but you can teach them, you can train them to do the job. So she says, I will take that person a lot of times over the person has a bachelor's, because I can teach them. I can mold them into the employee that I want. And a lot of times when you take those people, they're so thankful that you're like giving them a chance, that they're, I love the word go through a wall. Like, they'll go through a wall for you because you gave them a chance, and they're going to be willing to do whatever.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I've been in that situation where people have given me a chance, and it does breed massive loyalty and appreciation. 100%.
It sure does. Sure does.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for being here today. We're gonna put some links in the description of the video, and we'll be directing people to come check out your podcast, Let's Be Diverse. But where will they be finding you on your podcast?
Okay, so the podcast is, you can find me on Google or Spotify. I checked this out the other day and I was pretty stoked. If you Google Let's Be Diverse, it's the first thing that pops up in Google, which I was pretty impressed with. I'll let your listeners know that I did a year of research, but the podcast has only been running for about, as far as putting out episodes, for about 4 months now. I got about 40 episodes for people to listen to. And it's growing in popularity every day that I check. It's amazing to me how many people are listening that I never would have thought as many people would have listened to at this stage of the game.
Awesome. That's really exciting. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
Fast growth. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for being here today. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Do you have any last words, or are you just satisfied with our conversation?
I just would say thank you very much for having me on today. It was I really enjoyed the conversation. I could probably talk about this stuff for hours and hours. So when I have the opportunity to talk about this stuff, I'll take it any day of the week.
Cool. Well, maybe we'll have you back again another day. So everyone, be sure to check out Andrew's podcast, Let's Be Diverse. We'll have the links in the description below the video, so you can find it there when it's convenient for you. And be sure to check out all the information that we have there for you. We thank you for taking your time to listen in today and to meet and greet experts from around the world around your holistic well-being. And we will see you back here next time. Bye-bye.